welcome back to another episode of Mona's Rants. I am your host, Mona Shake. You guys, what's happening? We're shaking and grooving. Very excited. I wanted to bring on, of course, the one and only Johnny Wendell on as a guest because I wanted to talk about Trump's future. Like, what's happening? Is he forming another party? Is he moving to Russia to get peed on again? Like, what's happening with him? So here he is, the one and only Johnny Angel Wendell. How are you?
Hey, Mona.
Hi there. Nice to see you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
I totally can. I can totally hear you.
Let's see how it turned up. I'm all the way up. Yeah, I'm good. Woo. Now you're muted, Mona. Take your mute off.
Can you hear me?
Now I can, yeah. You're muted.
Oh, I was muted. Sorry. What do you think is Trumpy's gonna do? I mean, what's his future? Like, he's screwed, isn't he?
It's way too early to tell. I know that that's a cop-out. You know, people say, oh, it's too early to tell. We don't know, stuff like that. But in this particular case, it is because you're talking about somebody with no self-discipline at all, who is entirely impulsive and compulsive, has no internal governor that tells him what he can or can't do is right or wrong. Right. So anything is possible with him. I have no idea. I would assume that one thing he may do is what Sarah Palin did after she lost in 2008, which is kind of faint. Hey, James, when she was kind of, she'd pretend she was going to run in 2012, and she used this to raise a boatload of money, moved her family from Alaska to Arizona. It was a huge grift for her. She teased and teased and teased and teased. But in reality, on some level, Sarah Palin knew that not only am I never going to get elected, I'm not going to get nominated either. And I think that in reality, in 2024, no matter what the polls say today, it's going to be a really, really tough time for Trump to be renominated by the Republican Party, because what they are looking at this point is something like anywhere from 10 to 30% of registered Republicans leaving. They're talking about, Adam Kinzinger was a Republican congressman from Illinois. He's talking about, look, we want to start a new party. We've had it. We can't coexist with these people, right. And there was a bit, this is big to do about the Lincoln Project falling apart. They were the anti-Trump Republicans who have a huge scandal that they're having to deal with now. And
what's the scandal, Johnny? I heard about it, but what's the scandal?
One of their founders, John Weaver, who was a big deal in the McCain campaign in 2008, was using his power to solicit young men, like over 20 of them, was sexually harassing them. And Steve Schmidt, who was one of the founders, resigned. Jennifer Horn, who was a big deal there, she left. I think they're pretty much finished. Wow. They can rename themselves as something else and try to come back. But they should have known that the powers that be, hey, Tim, in the Republican Party, were going to come after them, because they feel that, it is entirely possible. The Lincoln Project peeled 2 to 5% of their votes away in the last election. There's a tremendous amount of loyalty in the Republican Party to Donald Trump.
Sure.
And nobody can understand this. They're like, this guy, he's clearly borderline demented. And I can't tell you which side of the border it is, but he's on the borderline of dementia.
I think you're being very generous when you said borderline. I think he's
he could be on the
psychopath. He's a psychopath.
Well, Mona, he could be on the Tijuana side of the borderline of psychopathy. Okay,
I wasn't in terms of country borders, but I'm just thinking in terms of sane and insane. That's what I was thinking.
No, it's like there's an old expression from the Northeast, because I'm from the Northeast in the United States, is being on the Jersey side of something. Like if you're 44, you're on the Jersey side of 40. Because you don't want to be on the Jersey side. You want to still be in New York, right? So if you're on the Jersey side,
Jersey
you're in the smelly, crappy Secaucus, Elizabeth refineries, yucky New Jersey. Of course, all those polluted, horrible industrial towns in Northeast New Jersey. A one-bedroom apartment is still $1,700.
And Johnny, can we like just sidetrack just for a little bit to be like, why the fuck is New Jersey called the Garden State? Because New Jersey sucks. It looks like garbage most of the time when you're just driving through. You're like, Garden State? More like dumpster fire state. Like dumpster fire state, I think fits it more accurately.
When I was growing up, one of the cities that I lived in was Newton, Massachusetts, and it was called the Garden City. I guess that was its name, the Garden City. And the joke was Newton, being it was like 35% Jewish. The joke was it's the Garden City because there's a Rosenblum on every corner. So, I don't think you can make that joke about New Jersey. But getting back to the issue of Trump and what is he going to do? He's already fired his first salvo. He aimed it at Mitch McConnell, I guess. Tore into him, said, this man is physically decrepit. He can't run the Republican Party. He's useless. And his wife, Elaine Chao, she's completely corrupt as Secretary of Labor. Don, the President of the United States who hired her as Secretary of Labor, what would his name be? Oh, it was you.
Exactly.
That's pretty stupid.
That's right. And Johnny, he's not paying Rudy Giuliani, his lawyer, and his lawyer now has to go get a lawyer. I mean, when your lawyer has to go get a lawyer, shit ain't right. Like something's wrong.
Well, look. For example, in the impeachment trial, it was a fait accompli. There was no way, unless Mitch McConnell had gone to his caucus and said, look, we want to get rid of this guy once, and this is the only you know what it is, Mona? It's like if you've got a bandage you've had on a serious wound for 2 or 3 days and it's crusty and disgusting, and I got to replace this thing, rip, and it's going to hurt, but the thing's off, and now I can put Neosporin on it, a new bandage, and the process will continue. They could have done that. Could have been rip, get rid of Trump, And Mitch McConnell could have gone to his caucus, or he could have gone to Schumer and said, let's make it a secret vote, because the secret vote is what saved Liz Cheney in the House, right? So let's make it a secret vote. It's a secret vote. It's like 80 to 18 or something. It's the end, but it didn't work out that way. It was really stupid. Mona, there are two numbers that you cannot ever forget under any circumstances. One is 74 million. The other is 285 million. And what are those numbers? 74 million Americans voted for Donald Trump in the last election. He came away with nearly $300 million in save me, save me. What saving was there to be done when there was no saving? He just organized an army of crazy inbred, middle-class old white men to storm the Capitol, right?
That's right.
So,
who are not complaining that they feel duped and they feel lied to.
Oh, well, what's his name? What's it? The Guar, the guy with the horns.
Jake Angeli.
Jake Angeli from Arizona.
Mr. Douche.
He's looking at 13 to 16 years in the federal ban. Now, admittedly, that's a lot of organic food that I'm going to be paying for with my tax dollars.
True.
But such is life. Sorry, Jake. You backed the wrong horse's ass.
That's right. That's right.
No, but those numbers are critical because 74 million and the 300 million. And the reason is that nobody expected Trump was going to get 74 million votes. They expected that it would be a reason. It really wasn't a particularly close race after all was said and done, except in a few states.
Yeah.
But the fact is that Trump got 63 million votes 4 years ago and 74 million a few months ago. So they're looking at it, that's 11 million people who backed a president who botched a pandemic. This is a president who has never had an approval rating over 50%. I mean, on this day in 2017, Trump's approval rating was 45%. You want to know what Biden's is today? 62%.
Wow.
He's almost up to 2/3 popularity. Why is that in a country that's supposed to be so narrowly divided down the middle? Why? Biden is a competent administrator.
That's right. That's right.
It doesn't look like he's going to try to enrich his family.
That's right.
What did Biden do? The first thing that Biden did when he was in the White House, I think day 1 or day 2, he went on camera and he said, anybody who mistreats anybody else in my administration is fired immediately. And he did it. And he's already done it. Mm-hmm. I guess one of his press people, TJ Ducklow, that was his name, was abusive to another staffer or a girlfriend over Twitter, or it was in public. Amputated. Jen Psaki, you're done. You're fired.
I love it.
Went to Biden. Biden said, I'm not going to have this. There isn't going to be any, men are not going to abuse women in my administration. It's just not, we're done with that.
That's right.
Times have changed. Look, one thing that Republicans are in this really peculiar situation on the issue with Donald Trump. Yes, he got 11 million more votes than he did last time, but Jesus, Biden got 16.5 million more than last time. Yep. Okay. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but, sitting here in Silver Lake, underneath my, wall of shame here, 81 million is considerably more than 74 million.
That's right.
So if they want to bring Trump back in 2024, let's assume for a rematch. Let's say that Biden's health is okay.
Yeah.
And he's still president of the United States. He still has his marbles, and Biden's the incumbent president. The pandemic's gone. There is some economic growth. Unemployment is dropping. He beats Trump by 14 points. At that point, that's when the dam breaks, Mona. When you have people they're not like me and they're not like you. Uh-huh. Okay. I'm only a second generation American. You're an immigrant. We're talking about people who families been in the United States for 150 years, say. And these people were what you used to call moderate Republicans who live in the suburbs of New York City, of Chicago. Los Angeles doesn't really have suburbs.
That's right.
Houston, Texas, Atlanta, places like that. And Biden carried those suburbs in the last election by a hair. Biden carried Maricopa County, which is mostly suburbs. It's Phoenix and all of its suburbs, right? By about 1.5 points, 2.5 points, something like that. If he runs again in 2024 and the pandemic has been taken care of competently and people are reasonably pleased with the direction of the country, he carries Maricopa by 6 or 7.
Wow.
Wow. That's it's like the power of incumbency in America is tremendous. And also what you got to realize is Biden has never been below 55% approval. Trump was over 45% approval a handful of times. Mm-hmm. So we don't see it because we're in this weird media fishbowl, Mona, where Trump gets so much attention and Biden doesn't get a lot, because he's really not very interesting. There's not that much.
And we want that, right? After having the Trump presidency, he's like the perfect person to occupy.
Well, he's like, look.
He's tofu. That's what I call him, tofu.
Well, he isn't even tofu because tofu is, tofu
it
tastes like, but it tastes like whatever you put on it, right?
Exactly.
Like if you have.
That's why you got Kamala Harris to add that little curry action to it. That's
right. I know, but it's still tofu. You know what I mean? And it's interesting that I guess he did a town hall this evening with Anderson Cooper, right? And after the show Biden and Cooper went back and forth, I guess Biden had heard that from somebody in the audience that their kid was having respiratory issues or something, and he took them aside. He made a point to take them aside. And he goes, give me a call. We'll see what we can do to take care of this.
Wow.
And everyone in the room is like, what? It's like nobody does that. It's like, it's sort of in a peculiar way, it's a breach of protocol. It's like you're the president of the United States. It's like it's a nice gesture, but this is a subordinate handles this. But Biden is a peculiarity in American politics in that he's old.
Yeah.
This is his last job. Likely when he gets out of the White House, either in 2025 or 2029, or, heaven forbid, he passes away during halfway through either of those terms, there are not going to be any memoirs. He's just going to retire to Delaware. He'll be a very, very old man. I mean, not by, in my family, I believe at least, I think 3 of my 4 grandparents lived past 87. But
that's amazing.
Yeah, neither of my parents did.
Wow.
But no, they didn't take good care of themselves. But
people in my family don't live that long either, Johnny. I mean, my aunt died at 42. My father died at 56. My grandmother died at barely 61, 62 years old. I mean, people die young in my family. Young.
Not you.
We'll see.
That's not going to happen. No, I'm deeply in denial right now. No, Mona will not die. Mona not going to die anytime soon.
Just live through it. No, I mean, it's no, you're right about that. By the way, James has a question here for you. First, he said, if the Trumpy Viking was either black or Latino, I doubt he would get organic food. That's damn straight on that.
No kidding, James.
Yeah. And then he said an awful lot of Republicans have left the party. At least 3 of my relatives changed to either libertarian or unspecified. And then he had a question for you. He said, does Johnny think Lara Trump will run for the South Carolina Senate seat, and will she win?
James, it would be North Carolina. Graham won, in November. And the other South Carolina seat is Tim Scott. I don't think he's up until 2024. You mean North Carolina, because Richard Burr is retiring. So it's going to be an open seat in 2022. It won't be for a full 6-year term. I think it's only for a 2-year term, but Burr wants out. He's got legal issues with insider trading, and also Burr voted for Trump's impeachment. So he's on their crap list. Will Lara Trump is the wife of Horse Gum's Eric Trump, possibly the ugliest child in history. It's like when Eric was born, the doctor spanked Ivana. It's like, gave birth to this. It's like,
I think when he was born, I think the doctor just slapped his face, not even his butt.
No, the doctor said, "Nurse, quick! I need a massive amount of battery acid. What, to dissolve the cord? No, to throw it in my fucking eyes."
Jesus Christ.
No, it's like, will she run in North Carolina? Well, a few things about first of all, North Carolina is like a 50-50 state. It's not much of a red state. It is a very popular Democratic governor.
Yeah. And
the Republican who won re-election this time only did so because the Democrat was sexting, and that knocked his approval rating down 6-7 points. The Democrat likely to run for the open seat is named Jeff Jackson. I think the guy's name's 38. He's a military veteran, and he's a genuine liberal. Okay. But he's not. The guy that they ran against, Tom Tillis, who's a doctor, and he's a Republican. He won. This guy, Cal Cunningham, nobody really liked him much. He beat a more progressive candidate in the primaries, but the progressive that he beat wasn't Jackson. It was somebody else, but it was somebody who was like the base of the North Carolina Democratic Party liked. They like Jackson a lot. Jackson is sort of like, it's like a palatable middle of the road Democrat. It's like an Obama Democrat, right? So if he were to run against Lara Trump in 2022, one thing that you would hear and see all the time in political advertising would be carpetbagger. Now, I don't know if, Mona, you weren't born in the United States, nor were you educated here. Do you know what a carpetbagger is?
I was educated in America.
Okay, what's a carpetbagger?
Why do I've heard this.
You don't know. You've
heard this term before, yeah. You've used this term before.
Well, it's a common term, mostly in terms of the American South. The South Confederacy loses the Civil War. It ends in 1865, and the Reconstruction begins, right?
Yeah.
Southerners were perturbed and angry to find Northerners who would move into their districts and attempt to change their way of life. And as it turns out, the popular style of suitcase and luggage in those days was a bag that appeared to be made out of carpet. Hence, a carpetbagger is somebody comes from out of town. Okay, so that's where that comes from.
Got it.
And it is not popular in the South. Now, it is true that Trump beat Biden in North Carolina by about 75,000 votes. Okay. But Donald Trump is not running. Lara Trump is not Donald Trump. For one thing, you can look at her without vomiting right up until she starts talking. Then, then the dry heaves start, But
tell me how you really feel, Johnny. I think you're having a hard time expressing yourself today.
She has James. She has no chance. She may win a Republican primary if they can't find somebody else.
Yeah.
But this idea that Donald Trump's nocturnal emission is that Lara Trump runs in North Carolina and Ivanka runs in Florida in 2022.
Right, they're very happily settled there right now.
Okay. Yeah, they're down there in, Mar-a-Drago, down at West Palm Beach. There's a lot of talk going around that they want to run Ivanka in 2022 in the Republican primary against Marco Rubio. And this is what's really kind of dangerous from Trump's point of view. Look, I'm no genius, okay? And Donald Trump was president of the United States, so he's capable of some stuff, right? He has some self-awareness. He doesn't pay attention to it, but he has some.
Mm-hmm.
He must know if Ivanka and Lara don't win the Republican primaries in 2022, that's a shot across the bow towards the end of his political career. That's like saying your word doesn't go as far west as it used to, pal.
Mm-hmm.
Even worse.
Yeah.
Certainly from my point of view, not worse, but from Donald Trump's is that they get nominated, then they get beat. Okay. Marco Rubio is an incredibly horrible politician. He's terrible.
Yes.
Marco Rubio is now best known to most people in America politically as the guy that cites the Bible in all of his tweets. A liberal in Texas. We're not talking about Texas, dude.
No, that was a comment before.
Oh, okay. And Marco Rubio is, after all, in 2016, he said, I'm not running for re-election for the U.S. Senate. I'm running for president, and if I don't get the nomination, my political career is over. I'm going to the private sector, right? So Trump crushes him in the primaries. Marco thinks about it for a while and realizes, if I'm not in the U.S. Senate, no one is going to return my calls. I won't have any juice. So what I'm going to do is run for re-election and pray that people forgot this. Well, he ran for re-election. The Democrats ran this middle of the road horror. Donnelly, I think, and Rubio destroyed him. Wow. Florida is a very, very tough state for Democrats now because whereas Cuban Americans have been moving left steadily for the last 20 years or so, started moving back to the right, somewhat nudged by their friends from Caracas. There are
Mm-hmm.
300,000 Venezuelans in South Florida, and they don't like Democrats. They're very conservative. They believe the Democratic Party sold them out, and that Trump talked tough to Maduro in Venezuela. They like that kind of tough talk. It's like, look, I can talk tough too. You know, Mona, I'm going to come over there and pick you up and hold you over my head like you were Fay Ray or something. I'm not going to do that. I'm talking tough, right? Drive over to West Hollywood, break down Mona's door, pick her up, and carry her over my head like a barbell, right?
Johnny, I'm actually worried. I'm concerned about your neck and your lower back because all this COVID weight, it's not going to be very kind on you. So.
Oh, COVID weight? You didn't have COVID.
I did have COVID. I'm talking about the COVID weight, the COVID-19 to put on during the pandemic.
Not me. I've lost about 15.
Good for you. Yeah.
Well, I just, it didn't feel like I was sitting around and becoming a marshmallow. I just thought, like, who needs it? I'm bored. Boredom and now self-hatred. Oh, what could make boredom better? I know. I'll hate myself. Now I'm bored and self-loathing at the same time, right?
I like it. That's how my cheeks are getting filled up, and it's not Botox. It's just food.
Nor acorns.
Not acorns. It's just empanadas. Empanadas, you name it, it's been here. So you name it.
Empanadas, the flower of Argentina.
The flower of Argentina. Johnny, I have a question for you. Right? I have a question for you. Do you think, I get the feeling that the Republican Party is going to be split up, and I feel it's almost like the Democratic Party is going to be split up too.
No. Had Biden lost? Yes, absolutely. Okay, Biden wins. Winning solves a lot of problems. Okay, in politics, in sports, in everything, right? You can have. Thanks, James. James said that I'm not a genius, but I'm fucking smart. Ivanka 2024, says Andre.
Yeah,
well, Andre.
Yeah, Andre.
Andre's on MDMA right now. No, Andre. I mean,
I don't know.
I understand Andre's attraction to Ivanka. She does. She actually Ivanka actually looks like if somehow they figured out how to animate a blow-up doll to become a real person. Like after the last, that's something. Your last breath animated her, and now she's a human being, sort of.
She's like a fembot.
No, Andre, I forget it. She has no political future. This is going to come across as very, very odd coming from me, but Donald Trump may not be a nice person. He certainly isn't. He lies about everything. We know that. He's a terrible businessman. He's an atrocious businessman. He's nobody's friend. He doesn't like animals. But what he is good at is that he is a remarkably magnetic politician, which is weird because he never ran for anything other than the one time he ran for president, won once and lost when he lost twice, really. But, he's a very good politician. He is a terrible administrator. He's incredibly corrupt. He has no self-awareness. And, he has enough self-awareness to know I better not do certain things, but the difference between you talk about Ivanka running against Rubio and you talk about Lara Trump running in North Carolina. They're not their father or father-in-law, respectively. For one thing, they weren't on The Apprentice for 11 years. You can't diminish how important that is, that you had someone on primetime television for 11 years. That's a remarkable achievement.
Right.
And also, people believed that the character was real.
That's
You
right.
know, that you're fired, that this incredibly powerful genius CEO, you're fired. It's like,
Yeah.
first of all, Donald Trump he's a coward. He's not going to, he never fired, he didn't fire Mattis, he didn't fire Kelly, he didn't fire Tillotson, he didn't fire any of these people, unless it was by tweet. You know, if I'm sitting in a room with a subordinate and I got to let him go, I'm not going to do it by email. I'm not going to do it by text, and I'm not going to do it over social media. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody can't do a job, you go like, okay, you can't do the job that you're getting paid for. You know, or we can't. I can't work with you because we got this communication issue. You know, so his public image, his carefully cultivated side of his persona as the powerful boss, got him elected president of the United States. Problem is that when he was president for 4 years, what was revealed about him was that the source of his popularity is that he is like every knucklehead in America who's addicted to AM talk radio, Fox News, or Newsmax. Right. You know, it's one thing to shovel that crap out. It's another to believe it.
Right.
You know,
right.
It's like, what's the famous line in Scarface? Don't get high on your own supply. Right. Mm. Well, in media, if you're a crap peddler like Tucker Carlson or Laura Ingraham, or I don't even know who the people on Newsmax are. I don't care. I think I watched it for a minute and a half once. It was like, this is ridiculous. Want to know how bad Newsmax is? This guy who brought me to do radio shows in Boston was unemployed. I'm not going to use his name. He was unemployed just a few years ago. Unemployed, and the guy who owns Newsmax went to him and said, "We want to make you the executive producer for the entire network." Wow. And my friend, kind of broke. He's got nothing. Thought about it, and mind you, he's a right-wing conservative Republican. It's not like he's got to change his stripes or whatever. He's on board with a lot of the stuff that they say, sort of. He thought about it. It's like, no, I can't. I hate these people. It's like, I'm not doing it. I can't stand these people. It's like, even he knew. It's like this is. It's like I don't want to be shoveling manure. Like what?
Right.
I'm on my deathbed. I'm reflecting back on my life. What did I do? It's like I spread misinformation of the worst kind.
Right.
That was my life. Mona, I don't know how these people do this. I mean, admittedly, most of them are materialists, and it pays.
Yeah.
But if you're somebody like Tucker Carlson, he makes a fortune. He's a very famous man now, but on some level, this is a guy, a reasonably well-educated man. I got to tell you something. If I'm in an elevator with Tucker Carlson, if by some miracle he's not surrounded by, sycophants and bodyguards or whatever, it's just me and him, boom, I press the stop button on the elevator and I go like, well, I want to ask you something. Don't be afraid. I just want to ask you a question. Then I'll get the elevator going again. Do you believe any of what anything? Do you believe, what percentage of the things that you say at night on Fox News, because I've watched him, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous. For one thing, he's a lousy actor. He has the same moves for everything.
Right.
I mean, I got to tell you something. I've been actor in the Screen Actors Guild for 25 years, or however long I've been doing it. I can't remember. One thing that you learn is don't do the same few things all the time, because then people start making fun of you, and the director stops and goes, "Why are you doing that again?"
Right.
What's with the head tip or the shrug? Stop doing that. Why? That's what my character will do. No, they won't. Do you do the same thing over and over all day? You walk down the street going like this, with your right hand. Do you do that? No. Well, then stop doing this or that. Stop that. That's not what that's not, you're acting. Inhabit a persona. So I watch Tucker Carlson or Laura Ingraham, the imbecile Sean Hannity, right? And you're like, God, they're such lousy actors. I'm sure that on some level they believe the crap that they're peddling.
Well, I think
but they're terrible actors. It's like you're watching it and go like,
right.
God, you people, you suck.
Yeah.
You're so unconvincing.
You know what it is? You know what it is, Johnny? Tommy Lauren, Laura Ingraham, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, even Bill O'Reilly, right? Bill O'Reilly when he was on air. Like when you look at, long gone. But when you look at all these people, right? They all are just playing characters. And sooner or later, it just comes out that they're just playing, they're catering to an ignorant audience that is very willing to just give their money, just like Alex Jones, same thing, putting on a persona. Like, he's disgusting. He really is the fucking worst of all of them. But if you look at all these people, like, they all put on these characters, and then you're just like, is this a new way of making a living? Like, what is it?
Think of it like this. Okay. Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham and Bill O'Reilly came from AM radio to Fox News. Okay. I've been on the radio for 18 years, something like that. Radio is a different thing than television. Radio is a hot medium. Television is a cool medium. If you are overly amped up on camera, like that horrible piece of acting I just did a second ago.
Yeah, that's Alex Jones.
Like Alex Jones.
Yeah,
that fat revolting face of his, right? Or Laura Ingraham with her tipped head and her I've got a lemon in my mouth and one up my ass, and or Sean Hannity was his fake outrage, or Tucker Carlson. I was like, wow, I was like surprised by everything.
The pen in his hand.
Yeah, right.
Isn't it right?
It's like you can't have hot affectations on camera. They don't look right. For example, if I'm sitting, podcast is sort of is like really what we're doing now is a radio show, but you can see us, okay? Right. But it's still a radio show. It's not television.
That's right.
This is I'm on a webcam. Mona's on a webcam. Not like we have multiple cameras. We're in a studio. We're all made up. We have guests. We have time constraints. This is a radio show where you happen to be able to see the beautiful lady with the black hair and the ugly old guy with the red hat. Okay.
You're not
so spare me, Mona. Okay.
Johnny, I don't have friends. I don't have
friends.
My friends are not ugly, so I don't know what you're talking about. There's a question here, by the way, for you. This dude accidentally called you James, but he meant Johnny. He said, hey, what do you think Biden's America will be like for the next 4 years? He wants to know. Dang son wants to know.
Thanks, son. How quickly the pandemic is remedied is the only issue of importance in 2021. We know this. That's the only thing that counts. Nothing else is important. If, as it seems to be going right now, it continues in this direction, if we catch a break and one of two things happen. One, the vaccines productions get ramped up and the vaccines are effective against the initial SARS-2 virus, or they handle the variants, or the variants mutate into something more like a common cold. After all, coronavirus causes a common cold. Okay. Mm-hmm. As we're seeing in California right now, COVID numbers are plummeting. As we're getting further away from the holidays, my wife is worried about Super Bowl Sunday, that we're going to see another spike because of Super Bowl Sunday. I'm not entirely sure about that. Mm-hmm. But California now, almost 1 out of 8 people in our state, we're just under 12%, 12.5% is 1 out of 8 people, has gotten at least one shot. Okay. And at least one shot gives you 75-80% chance of immunity.
Right.
If by my birthday's at the end of June, if by my birthday 140, 150 million people have been inoculated. Okay. Right. And either there's a booster shot or the Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Novavax, Sputnik, Sinovac.
Oxygen is like just one shot, room temperature, super
right. Easy to handle. And AstraZeneca, I mean like 6 or 7 of them, right? Mm-hmm. Plus out of Israel now, there is a treatment that they are using that is like a 96% cure. It obliterates symptoms. It prevents your immune system from going nuts. Okay. Forget all that stuff. If over half of the United States is inoculated by June and 65% by Labor Day, say 70, then we're at herd immunity.
That's correct.
Okay. That means both of my sons go back to school. It means everybody goes back to school. It means that more likely than not, they are also developing a vaccine for children, and oral vaccines, so not just a jab. Okay. If all of this is done, and the second bill that Biden is keen to get through, the big infrastructure bill, because he can go for 2 of them this year. He can go for 2 without having to worry about the filibuster, because these are budget issues, right?
Right.
You get an infrastructure bill, you get the relief bill, and the economy starts adding 500,000 jobs a month, say something like that, mostly rebuilding the country. I mean, ask the people of Texas how they feel about a lousy infrastructure right now. Okay.
My family's there right now, and I spoke to them, and they're like, heads are going to roll. My brother's like, we have no electricity since 2 a.m. 2 days ago. No electricity.
That's right. Okay.
It's 9 degrees outside.
Okay. Let me give. Who was the person who asked the question?
Dang Sun did. Dang Sun.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Dang Sun. It's that's right. Hey, James. I'm not James. I'm John.
Yeah, he's a Johnny.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Son. It's like this. If we see in America next year, this year is all about COVID. Okay. But in next year, if you start to see something looks like it's going to be about 4.5-5% growth, which, I mean, if you pump $2 trillion more into the economy, it'd probably be more like 6% growth. Yes, there's going to be massive deficit, but we'll get to that in a minute. All right. Then Democrats likely pulverize Republicans in the midterms. Okay. Generally, that doesn't happen. The first midterms are really bad for the party in power. But they're bad for the party in power for a reason that doesn't exist now. They're bad for the party in power because when the party out of power is angry and they organize and they come out and they vote in droves. The problem is the party out of power right now is no longer the party that it was 10 years ago.
That's correct.
It's now a cult of personality based on Donald Trump. So Trump is not on the ballot next year. Even if Lara and Ivanka are, even if Melania is, even if Barron runs for something, it doesn't make any difference. Donald Trump not on the ballot. And a lot of the people who voted for him in last November, there's nobody to vote for. And it isn't like they particularly like Republicans. And the Republican Party has really harmed itself with this, whatever Democrats are for, we're against. The fact is that the stuff that Biden has proposed runs between 70 and 90% approval in America. Wow. People in America are hurting really badly. They want their businesses to reopen. However it's done, they don't care.
That's right.
They don't care how high the deficit is or how much money we have to print. It doesn't make any difference. And Republicans can't be obstructionists to this kind of economic recovery, or they're facing absolute obliteration. Because here's a micro example. That's something that you should think about. In the last few days in Texas, we know what's going on in Texas. The power's off. Okay. The right-wing media is blaming the Green New Deal. Biden's policies have caused the lights to go out in El Paso, San Antonio, and Dallas. Okay. Now,
that's the same argument as Antifa.
Okay.
Okay.
It's worse. It's worse than Antifa. Okay. I mean, at least Antifa on some level somewhere exists. Okay. I mean, so Antifa did not attack the Capitol.
That's correct. That's
okay.
Correct. The FBI came out and they verified it. They're like, there's no sign of Antifa.
Kevin McCarthy came out and said, "There's no Antifa. What are you, nuts?" It's like, these people were at your rally cheering for you. It wasn't a goddamn act. What are you, crazy? It's like, but here's the deal. The Green New Deal is the reason the power's off in Texas. You run this by Texans, they go, what? Green? Right. What green? There is no Green New Deal. Biden's been in office for 4 whole weeks as of today. 28 days.
That's
okay.
Right.
Tell me, when did the Green New Deal become law in the last 28 days? Answer, not at all. Okay, so that's gone. So the idea that the insanity in Texas, so this horrible shit in Texas is Biden's fault, it's an impossibility. Okay. Mm-hmm. Biden being responsible for the power being out in Texas is like me dunking over Taco Fall. Okay. Taco Fall is a 7'6" basketball. I'm not going to dunk over Taco. The only way I would dunk over Taco is if I slammed an actual taco in his face filled with hot sauce. He falls over screaming, and then I dunk over him.
But you still have to reach him. He's 7 foot tall.
No, he's lying. He's lying on the court screaming.
Oh, okay. Then that's different.
All right, but anyway. The fact is why is there no power in Texas? Okay, why? Because they didn't winterize their natural gas. As James says, Texas has more wind farms than anyone else, and they're operating at full capacity. Yeah. Okay, here's the problem: they didn't winterize their natural gas pipes; they froze. So there's no natural gas. There's no gas. There's no petrol. There's no coal. Nothing's going through anything. It's frozen. Okay, Texas's infrastructure, its power infrastructure, works unless something extraordinary happens. But what's happening with this polar vortex thing happens every 4 or 5 years. This is not an extraordinary thing. It does happen, every 5th or 6th winter, But Texas's electricity, their infrastructure, their power infrastructure, is based on we can pump enough power to change the temperature in your house 30 degrees. Okay, because usually what it's used for is it's 102 degrees out in Brownsville or Laredo, okay, where it's really hot, the Rio Grande Valley. And they won't brown you out, you won't get blackouts, they'll drive the temperature in your house down to 72 degrees. You can sleep at night, you can breathe, right? Yeah. It's 10 degrees in Texas. It's not going up to 40 degrees. That's People are pushing their thermostat all the way up because they're freezing, and they can't get any power through the pipes. The pipes are frozen. That's okay. Right. Now, if they had spent enough money to winterize the pipes, this wouldn't be a problem. One. Right. Two, if they had built 20 times the wind capacity they have now, plus solar, natural gas would no longer be a power source in Texas, and it's not going to be much longer anyway. According to Shell Oil, we are 2 years past peak oil production in the world. Okay, that means that at this point, from here on in, the fossil fuel business is simply going to die of.
I hope so.
There's just not enough of it to go around anymore. Right. Okay,
right.
So Texas, their power, they are not hooked up to anybody else's grid. Okay, so they can't go to New Mexico, and they can't go to Oklahoma, and they can't go to Louisiana or Arkansas, the states that abut them, or Mexico, and say, please help us. They're not hooked up to them. It is a private concern whose only aim is to turn a profit. Okay. One of the problems with profit-based businesses is that they don't like to spend a lot of money on upkeep or research and development. Those are expenses. They cut into the profit margin. Our shareholders don't like that. I mean, we had a problem in California too with private power, with Pacific Gas and Electric and their pipelines blowing up and stuff. You know, well, yes, he's right. Snow is rare in Texas, but it also does get down to 25, 30 degrees in Texas.
Oh no, it gets very cold in Texas. Yeah,
sure. And now it's 12. Also, one thing that they don't want to accept in Texas is, why is the weather so extreme? Is it possible
climate change?
Climate is changing.
Climate change.
The fact is the number one renewable energy center in the United States is in Texas. It actually is in Austin, right? So
Austin doesn't even feel like it's in Texas. I don't know how the fuck Austin ended up in Texas, Johnny. I do not understand this mystery.
You don't?
I don't understand. Things. I mean, I love Austin.
One. What's the number one and number two employers in Austin, Texas are not in the fossil fuel extraction industry. They are, one, the state of Texas, as it is the capital, and two, Hook'em Horns. It's where the Longhorns are. It's where the University of Texas is. Okay, so those are the two biggest employers. So when a university and government are your two biggest employers, what does that tend to make the politics of the area? Liberal. So, you know, it is. You know, it's like it's not like the rest of Texas where what are the big businesses in the rest of Texas? Fossil fuel extraction, health. There's an awful lot of commingling of evangelical Christianity and
oh my God, Johnny, don't even
in a lot of these businesses. Don't even get you know. So, but the thing with Texas
Joel Osteen's church is in Houston. I mean, it's massive.
Yeah, he's got one in Irvine too.
Yeah, so. I mean, it's massive. Conservative neighborhoods, sure.
Yeah, sure, but they exist in California too. Look, Texas is the only big difference between Texas and California, why Texas is not a blue state like California is because Texas politicians, certainly George W. Bush was one of these, and Rick Perry was another. However right-wing they were, they never played the Latino card. They never played the illegal immigrant card, ever. That is the fastest way to get 1.5 million unregistered or, you know, marginally interested Latinos in Texas. That would be the fastest way to get them to register as Democrats a day later. As we know from California was a 50-50 state, which is Texas is pretty close to a 50-50 state now too, right? California was a 50-50 state. Okay. The first George Bush barely beat Dukakis here. Bill Clinton beat Perot and Bush, and it's been, you know, going considerably blue. But what happened in this state, because I don't remember when you came here, Mona, but in 1994,
in LA or in America,
California
in 2011.
Okay, in 1994, it was a midterm, and the country was still in a soggy. The recovery from the recession of '91 was weak. Jobs were weak. The Democrats were going to get pasted in the midterms anyway. Okay. But in 1994, Republicans were worried they were going to lose the governor's mansion. Pete Wilson was the governor who's running for re-election against Kathleen Brown, Jerry Brown's sister, Pat Brown's daughter, right? So in order to rouse right-wing conservatives to vote for Pete Wilson, because Pete was a very middle-of-the-road, tepid, moderate Republican. They had to find something to get people to go to the polls. So what did they do? they came up with these two ballot propositions, 187 and 209. One was about affirmative action. The other thing was the immigration thing. They were very xenophobic, anti-Latino. And white folks in Orange County and Tulare and Kern and, up the Jefferson Republic up in North California came out in droves to vote for Pete Wilson, who was, a squishy moderate, but, he backed 187, 209. Here's the problem. In the wake of all that, Mexican Americans in the state were furious because they saw that they were being scapegoated, and they really and a lot of African Americans in the state did not like the anti-affirmative action thing. They thought it was like they're jabbing them, they're sticking it to them. So in 1998, Gray Davis ran for governor against Dan Lundgren. Lundgren was a conservative Republican. I think he was the state's attorney general for a while. Goodness. And Gray Davis, who was this total middle-of-the-road milquetoast, he was recalled in 2002, right? He slaughtered Lundgren, okay? And Democrats started winning House seats, and they started winning they started winning the legislature and the Senate. Now they have 2/3 majorities and everything. And why? Because Latinos in California are Democrats. They're still pissed off about 1994. Now in Texas, George W. Bush, not the brightest person in the world, obviously. Anyone who's ever observed him knows this. But he was smart enough to know if I make a production out of immigrants crossing the Rio Grande, coming out of the valley into San Antonio and Harris County and stuff. Yeah. I may get a bump from right-wing kooks, but I got them anyway. Okay. All it's going to do is it's going to get Mexican Americans, Central Americans start registering to vote as Democrats. And for instance, we figure Republicans in Texas have been smart on this issue. We learned this year that in the Rio Grande Valley, Trump did a lot better in 2020 than it did in 2016 for two reasons. One, a lot of the border agents down there, they're Mexican Americans. They didn't know what Biden, if they were going to have jobs under Joe Biden. Secondly, the wishy-washiness on fracking. A lot of them are in fossil fuels. They were like, we don't know if we're going to have a job. The weird thing is that the more intelligent of them know, one, you work for Border Patrol, you're going to probably still have a job.
That's right.
They may get rid of ICE, but border control will remain. Okay. Yeah. Secondly, on the issue of fossil fuels, guys, that is a job with no future. Okay. And it isn't just because of climate change. It's because, Mona, for the one gazillionth time, as dog is my witness, technology only goes in one direction, forward. Okay, it doesn't go backwards. It doesn't regress. It goes forward. So what that means is that if you make a solar panel that works and you get photovoltaic power out of the thing, what's going to happen? It gets more efficient. You develop storage from during the day that lasts all night. It's very strange to hear "lasts all night" coming out of the mouth of a 64-year-old man. Oh, thank you for that one.
Now you just sound like a stud.
Yeah. But anyway, no, I'm joking, of course. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to muse about, my past performances as opposed to the present.
Now you're just showing off, Johnny. Now you're just showing off is what you're doing.
But again, seriously, it only goes forward. Technology only moves ahead. So what happens is that the inefficient, lousy soul. Thank you, Robert. I love you too. The inefficient solar panel of say 1984, which is what? 37 years ago, right?
Right.
Look at it now. You could build a solar farm in West Texas somewhere out in how like the 10 goes from El Paso to San Antonio, and there's a deadly stretch. It's like 600 miles of nothing. It's like more bands have decided to break up on that stretch of the 10 than anywhere else in the world. Like this is it, you know. If you were to put a 250 square mile solar farm and it could power 80% of Texas, your power wouldn't be off, because yes, it is 12 degrees out in Texas, but guess what else? The sun is shining.
That's right.
You know, which means that there's going to be some power. This, Mona,
Well,
this is
they have a second snowstorm on its way.
That's true. You know, and there's going to, and by the way, there's going to be another gigantic snowstorm in the Northeast as well. You know, I got to tell you, it's like the lack of foresight. If you're somebody like, for example, in 2022, I don't know if the Republican governor Abbott is term limited out. He may be. I don't know if there are term limits in Texas, but Beto is likely to run against whoever the Republican is. He has to. Okay, he's got to do something to get his profile back up, and he's a very popular politician with Democrats in that state. Beto can make it quite clear. Look, you know, the oil business was wonderful while it lasted, but like everything else, it has its time.
That's correct.
Okay. I mean, if I have a business fixing payphones in 2021, not fixing iPhones. I don't work for Verizon. I don't work for Sprint. I don't work for AT&T. I'm the guy that goes around and goes to phone booths and makes sure everything works in a payphone, right? Well, I don't have a job anymore. There aren't any. You see a payphone now, okay, on the streets of Los Angeles. That's like seeing a Vega or a Pinto. All right. Those are, by the way, those are cars.
I'm aware of the Pinto and the Vegas, but thank you.
Okay. So
my daddy was in the car business, so I know a great deal about cars.
Okay, but I got to tell you, the other day, I was driving down, was it Glendale Boulevard past Echo Park Lake. We got a lot of people here who aren't from Southern California. It's about 7 minutes from downtown Los Angeles, and you've probably seen photos of Echo Park. Okay, I actually saw a bright orange 1973 Ford Pinto to my left, and I was just like, this is awesome. and I realized, as like, even when I was a 16, 17-year-old kid and I could theoretically have purchased a Pinto, I wouldn't. Okay, but I realized my mom had a Mr. Google says no. Yeah, I figured. Yeah. Wikipedia says that Abbott plans to run in 2022. Okay, Robert's probably right. Okay. My mom had a 1973 Ford Capri. It was a great car. You never see Capris anywhere anymore. They stopped making them, I don't know how long ago. Robert, go to Mr. Google and see when Capris stopped being made. Seriously, it's like if I saw a Capri now, I might have an orgasm. Well, especially if it was a little red one and it looked like my mom's car, because there was an awful lot of, going on in the back of that thing.
I bet.
I'm from the suburbs. I mean, yeah, we do that in the suburbs, So I don't know why we're talking about this. Anyway,
you are in quite the mood today, so I'm just gonna let you run with it.
I don't know why.
I think it must be did you get vaccinated yet?
No. Have you?
No. Goodness, no.
No, I can't. One, I'm too young. Two, I have no pre-existing conditions. Yeah, I'm actually too young to be vaccinated. I have no pre-existing conditions. Three, I'm not an essential anything. That's true. I'm not an essential anything. Yeah. It's like,
so you and I are in the same category.
Right. If you really want to have your self-esteem, somebody puts your self-esteem in a paper elephant and hauls it up like a piñata. And I'm like, how do you beat my self-esteem like you beat a piñata? Oh, why do I not get, no, it wasn't the Pinto. The Pinto was the exploding car. So was the Corvair, Robert. My brother had a Corvair. My brother bought a 66 Corvair. He drives it home. And my parents are like looking at it like, what? Don't you, what, unsafe at any speed? What is it? It was actually a pretty decent. It was the lousiest handling car in the world. It was like driving what's the best way? It would be like driving something that had no give left or right. It's like you figure, if I'm going to go in a straight line for 20 miles, this is a pretty good car. But if I have to go right,
that sounds like Trump's brain. I think that sounds like Trump's brain. Can't go left.
Yeah, Trump's brain is a Corvair.
Okay.
Yeah, unsafe at any speed. Anyway.
By the way, 19 December 1986. Last Capri was made on 19 December 1986 at the Ford factory in Cologne. 1.8 million Capris had rolled off the production lines.
Yeah, I know. My mom's was made in Italy, but yeah. Speaking of which, if I must interject this right now.
Okay.
The worst automobile I have ever owned, and I have owned some unbelievably awful vehicles in my day, okay? Because I never had a lot of money, so I never bought a new car. And then the used ones, I was usually about the 7th or 8th owner. Okay. Yeah. But the absolute worst, I owned this Fiat. I bought a Fiat when I was in 1976, when I was 20. And I swear that thing ran 1 out of every 5 days I owned it. It was a beautiful car. It was cool looking. There were only about 18 of them in America, but it was just, Fiats are the worst vehicles in the world.
100%.
And second to Fiats, MGs. One thing that you will not ever see an MG in Southern California. An MG is like a 2-person sports car made by British Leyland, right? The same company that used to make Jaguars. Okay, now the Jaguar got bought by Ford in the 90s. But MGs were, I don't know what MG stands for, motor grotesquerie or something. They're unbelievably loud, so you can't have a conversation with whoever is driving with you. And they will not stay in tune under any circumstances. It doesn't matter how often you change the plugs or the rotor or how many times you set the timing, it's going to go out.
That sucks.
What few musicians are listening right now, assuming any musicians are listening at all, the MG is the Gibson SG of automobiles. Gibson SGs are a type of guitar. I own 2 of them too. SGs. Okay. We're veering way off the topic. Can I go on?
We're going to start wrapping up Johnny soon, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. This must be said, right? When print journalism was relatively lucrative. I wrote, I interviewed a lot of musicians. I wrote a lot of music criticism, wrote columns about crime. I wrote about business. I wrote about politics. We write about, I'm good with words. Words are my friends, right? So, I was assigned to interview Angus Young. Angus Young is the lead guitar player in the group AC/DC, the fellow that wears the schoolboy uniform and does the Chuck Berry thing for 95 minutes a night, right? And Angus plays a Gibson SG. And I had to ask him because I own 2 of them. And I said, Angus, you have to have the greatest guitar tech in the world, or Gibson makes these special for you. But every SG I have ever had would not stay in tune for more than 40 seconds tops. Wow. They're structured, they're made wrong because the neck is a little narrower when it joins the guitar as where the headstock is, so it tends to tip out of tune. And Angus laughed. He has this Australian accent. He goes, "Nah, mate, I've never had a problem with them." He goes, I've heard this, yeah, but no, they stayed in tune for me. It's like, well, yeah, if I'd written Highway to Hell Back in Black and You Shook Me All Night Long, I could have afforded one that stayed in tune too, but they're terrible. MGs, SGs, 5Gs, get rid of it,
5Gs too, right? That's
5Gs, yeah.
That's another thing. Johnny, I think.
But of course, G's up and hose down.
G's up and hose down. Yeah, exactly. Right. Ain't nothing but a G thing.
That's right.
Ain't nothing but a G thing.
Dr. Dre and Snoop Doggy Dogg, 1993.
Listen, at least, as my mom says, at least he's a doctor. So
Why don't you meet a nice fellow like Andre Young? He's a doctor.
Why can't you be the doctor? I mean, Johnny, and we're gonna wrap up right after this. Is that remember the article that came out? This guy wrote about Jill Biden not being a real doctor and called her a kiddo and was being demeaning towards her. I was like, Jill Biden is a real fucking like she deserves that title.
She has a doctorate. She's a doctor. She's
ever
a doctor.
Questioned Dr. Dre. Yo, where's your doctor? Nobody's ever questioned Dr. Dre, but Jill Biden is getting questioned because she's a woman. Get out of here. Get out of here.
Oh, an entire podcast to lead up to the setup for that show. We've been on for 70 minutes. It was a 70-minute intro setup just so you could into that one joke in the back of her head. As soon as she heard the word doctor, she's like, I know what I'll do.
It's a good
I have become the ultimate straight man here,
Exactly. Johnny Wendell, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Do you want where can people follow you if they can?
Johnny A. Wendell at Twitter. I don't know what my work situation is radio wise because no, Robert, not.
Oh, we're not saying
we're not going there. However, okay, but Robert raises a point. Okay, this has to be said. Look, I know that Jen Psaki referred to Lindsey Graham as Lady G herself. She shouldn't have done that.
Mm-hmm.
Look, he is a horrible, spineless, sniveling, obsequious, apple polishing little horror from South Carolina. Yeah. If he happens to be a gay man, that might be the most appealing thing about him, because at least it would say like, well, at least he belongs to a group of people that does not intend to dominate and rule the world. Okay, so if Lindsey Graham is a gay man, I wish he would come out.
Yes,
and I wish you'd just embrace it. See, it's like, okay, so he is.
See, my problem is not with the him being. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think I adore him for the fact that he is gay. I think the part that I despise is that he uses his power in a negative way, which it goes against the very community that he belongs to. It's so fucking disgusting and hypocritical. While trans people are getting fucking murdered out there, it's like you sit in a position of power to speak up and protect them, but you don't.
Also, and most people, I know this is an unusual angle, but it's true. By doing what he's doing, he's signaling a level of contempt, not just for LGBTQ people, but for the voters of South Carolina. It's like, you really think that in 2021, even in South Carolina, which was, where the first shots of the Civil War were fired, but they were fired in 1861, dude. Okay. You really think the voters of that state are so backwards that they're going to vote you out because you're a gay man? They know you're a gay. One, they know you're a gay man. Two, there are gay resorts in South Carolina. Okay, people don't. Nobody cares anymore. I mean, speaking as someone who never cared in the first place.
But I don't think that's what it's about, John.
It just doesn't make any difference.
It's about his Republican peers. It's about staying in power, Johnny. That's what it's about.
Yeah, but he has contempt for voters. He acts as if that they're so troglodytic that they won't accept him. Look. In South Carolina is like anywhere else. If COVID is not handled and the economy doesn't improve, and it's from Republican obstructionism, because one thing about social media and the internet now is that stuff like Fox News, AM talk radio, it doesn't have the power it once had. If you go to Twitter now, you see like it's right and left are even, A lot of voters now know this is what Biden wants. He's made it. You asked at the beginning of the show, what's Biden got to do? It is really clear that Biden does want this $2 trillion COVID relief, and then an infrastructure bill this year. That's really what they want. Next year, what are you hoping for? The ability to maybe appoint more normal jurists than the horrors that Trump did, getting us out of Afghanistan forever, of the legalization of marijuana,
Right.
and the legalization of all organic psychedelic drugs, because that's being talked about also. I think that I was talking to a friend of mine who's a democratic socialist last night. She's like, yeah, I was still kind of wish it was Bernie. And I said, the thing is that Biden is so much more progressive than people could have ever imagined in so many ways. The idea that in the United States of America, you may actually have something that resembles a universal basic income fairly soon. The entire overhaul of the social safety net in America, what you may end up with is the government simply sending X amount of dollars a month to people, because that's how they do it in Finland. And what they found out was in Finland, the government, everything ran more efficiently. If people just had enough money to live on, they were okay. They didn't need to go through all the bureaucracy. They just bought stuff.
That's right.
And yes, a lot of government employees had to go learn how to do other things. They weren't social workers, or they weren't case workers for welfare, because nobody was on welfare anymore. They were just getting a flat check, and people were paying their rent and their groceries.
Right.
I mean, this is that. Two things: one, the death of fossil fuels, and two, universal basic
healthcare,
ground floor income, and eventually.
Well, they're also pushing for Medicare for all, right? Medicare for all is a big conversation.
We know for now that there's movement for Medicaid reform, that the federal government is going to get more involved in getting everybody on some form of something. Okay. That's what you do first. Second, after that comes a public option, where people who are like, I'm sick of dealing with Kaiser, I'm sick of dealing with Blue Cross and Anthem. I just assume be on Medicare.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to tell you something. As somebody who is 4 months and change away from being capable of getting Medicare, it's a drag. I mean, Humana, Vox, Kaiser, I'm getting barraged by these people. They all want my business because they know I'll go off of whatever I'm on now. Medicare will cover 80%, but they want that other 20, And it's like, as we were talking about Dr. Dre earlier, let's quote Snoop. Fuck y'all. All right, Mona. See you later.
See you later, Johnny. Thank you very much. Take care.
Bye-bye.
That was the lovely Johnny Wendell. I know you guys enjoyed the conversation. I know I definitely did. You guys, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. It would mean the world to me. You can go to youtube.com/Mona Shake Comedian. You can also follow me on TikTok and Facebook at the same name. And of course, follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Mona's Comedy. And if you guys enjoy these conversations, I usually forget to do these. You can also support me. You can also donate via PayPal or Venmo. PayPal me info@minorityreports.com or Venmo me at Mona S518. So I can keep doing these rants. I can keep bringing on amazing guests and keep carrying on. So yeah, you can donate via PayPal or Venmo if you like. Venmo is probably easier. Mona S518, very easy to remember. 518, if you're wondering what that is, it is my date of birth. You guys, always a pleasure. Have a good evening. I will see you tomorrow with a brand new guest. Have a good night. Stay safe.